All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Walker. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. I'm going to talk about 5 ways to use water wisely, and I'm also going to share some resources that can help you achieve that. But first, a little bit of backstory on why this is so important, especially right now. As of this morning, our primary drinking water source, which is Lavon Lake, is at about 83% full. This is pretty good, considering that we have endured a very hot and dry summer. Experience shows, though, that we will not always be so lucky. If you think back to 2011, all the way through mid-2015, we were in quite a severe drought. And if you look a little bit deeper, right now, we are indeed in a severe drought in Collin County and throughout the rest of Texas as far as soil moisture. So because it's been so hot and dry, it's incumbent upon us to be very careful of protecting our most precious shared resource. Sadly and shockingly, as much as half of the water that we use outdoors is wasted due to inefficient watering methods and systems, or parts and practices, as I say. Some of those include watering at the wrong time. So if you can see, that clock says just shortly after noon. So watering at times when it's hot, when it's windy, when you're more likely to lose your water to evaporation. Watering for too long, such that the soil simply can't absorb that water and it runs off into the street and into our storm drains. And finally, watering with broken sprinkler heads. This is one that I saw at my former residence as part of an HOA, and I felt really bad for that HOA because they'd be paying that bill. And if you can see, the very fine print in the bottom right says that in 6 months, or an irrigation season, one broken sprinkler head alone can waste 25,000 gallons. So add that up and that gets very, very expensive, not to mention the wasted water. So the 5 practices, or 5 ways that you can water more wisely, are to only water when necessary and to only water on your designated watering days. To water before 10 a.m. and after 6 p.m., to reduce your runoff by watering in shorter cycles, and to direct spray onto the landscape as opposed to our hardscapes, and finally to regularly inspect your irrigation system. So for the top 2, this is pretty easy to follow along with. Just note that watering between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. this time of year are strictly prohibited. And then your designated watering days, whether or not you are a resident or an HOA common area, are designated by the last digit of your address. So if your address ends in an even number, then Mondays and or Thursdays are your watering days. And if it ends in an odd number, then Tuesdays and or Fridays. And I say and or because that's dependent upon the weather. If we have rain in our forecast, then you may not need to water on both of those days. Hopefully we'll get some rain here in the near future. Also want to note that, again, HOAs follow the even schedule. So if you have common areas that you're managing, please ensure that those common areas are only running on Mondays and or Thursdays. So I have some resources and just some helpful hints for those other 3 ways that we can save water. So the best time of day to water is the early morning hours before sunrise, probably those 2 or so hours before the sun comes up. This is when there is less of a demand on the water supply and the water pressure because folks aren't trying to get up and take their showers and run the sprinklers at the same time. Also, you're less likely, again, to lose that water to evaporation. And finally, plants that stay wet all night long can be more susceptible to fungal diseases if those pathogens are in the area. So we really don't want to run sprinklers and get that plant material wet at the beginning of the nighttime or in the evening. We want them to be able to dry out in good time. So an awesome resource that can help you know when to water and when to wait, and more importantly, know how much to water, is watermyyard.org. And I would encourage you to sign up for this both as a resident and as a manager of HOA common areas. When you sign up or download the app, you will get a weekly email. This is an email that I actually received for this week, and it tells me how much water is needed in terms of inches, but it also tells me that in terms of minutes. Now, in a moment, I'm going to show you how I really cannot run my sprinklers for 76 minutes straight. That would be disastrous. But this is a helpful resource that can help you break up those waterings into shorter cycles to allow for absorption. The problem, though, with our native soil is that it complicates things. It can only absorb about 1/8 of an inch in an hour. So we really can't water longer than it takes our sprinklers to apply that much water. So your traditional spray heads that pop up and emit the same pattern the whole time that they're on, they deliver that 1/8 of an inch in about 6 to 8 minutes. Rotor heads that pop up and then turn in a certain pattern that you set, they deliver that 1/8 of an inch in 10 to 15 minutes. So our cycles shouldn't be longer than that because our soil simply can't absorb it. So a great method that you can use is called the cycle and soak method. Hopefully you've heard this terminology before. Really all it means is that we're splitting the total irrigation time into multiple parts to maximize that absorption. So the numbers that you see aren't a rule of thumb. This is an example. If you had a spray head, you could cycle it for 8 minutes, give that zone an hour for absorption, and then repeat as many times as necessary given the watering recommendation for that week. So if you needed 1/2 inch and you know how long it takes your zone to apply 1/2 inch of water, then you would break that into those multiple cycles, allowing for absorption in between. So we really want to help you with this, and that's why we have an online learning module called Water Everywhere, a guide to sprinkler repair. This can be found at plano.gov/modules, along with other sustainability-related learning tools. And when you access this module, it's almost a gamified means of learning how to make sprinkler repairs. There's a whole section dedicated to the cycle and soak method that you can practice before you go out to your irrigation controller. So as you can see, there's an imaginary sprinkler controller here that you are waiting to see how long it takes for those zones to fill up with water, and then counting the minutes and turning off the system in between. So it really helps you practice this method. There's also a worksheet that you can download from the module as you go outside and do this to your own irrigation system. There it is, right there. All right. Also on the module, it helps you spot common irrigation problems like damaged sprinkler heads, clogged nozzles or filters, and incorrect spray patterns. So if I were to click incorrect spray pattern, it would take me to a section that shows how to identify that problem. For example, it's spraying the fence rather than the turf. It would take me to a section then on what supplies I would need to fix that problem based on the type of sprinkler head I was addressing. And finally, it would show me a how to fix video based on that sprinkler. So again, a very valuable tool that can help you as residents and for your HOA common areas. But it's important to keep in mind that all seasons are not equal. They're not the same, so we need to budget our water use, especially as we begin approaching fall. There is a seasonal adjust feature on most traditional sprinkler controllers that can help make this very easy. And you may have heard that our mayor has called on us to reduce our run times per zone by 2 minutes each. Rather than manually going in and adjusting those zones, you can use the seasonal adjust feature, and I'll show you why that works in a moment. But here's another great rule of thumb. When the average temperature is 50 degrees, we need about 50% of the run time. When the average temperature is 100 degrees, we need, of course, 100% of the run time. And finally, when the average temperature coming this fall is around 70% of the run time. So addressing our water use based on the season. Well, what does this mean? Well, we can set a base schedule based on applying 1 inch of water in a given week. The seasonal adjust feature then adjusts all zones by a percentage of what's needed. So you, again, don't have to go in and do that manually. As an example, if you needed to apply 1/4 of an inch this week, then your watering is 3/4 or 75% less than your 1 inch. So you would set seasonal adjust to 25%, which means all of your zones would then be adjusted. So this might be the easiest, most efficient way for you to go in and reduce those run times for all of your zones by those 2 minutes or even more if necessary. But if you take nothing else away, please remember not to set the controllers and forget about them. They really do take your regular engagement based on the weather, based on the season, And there's a lot of new technologies that make this so much easier. Rather than having to go to the controller, you can actually manage your irrigation from your smartphone with smart controllers these days. We also encourage you to know your water flow. Please do study this month-to-month comparison, both for your home and for your common areas, so that you're able to spike any trends in your water use and quickly note anything out of the ordinary. Please also read these valuable messages on a monthly basis. You can see conservation tips, incentive programs, anything important that we think you should know about water and sustainability. But if you want more information than that, then you can view that online at your leisure. You can visit ecop.plano.gov/CUS, and this will take you to the Customer and Utility Services homepage, where you can log in using your water account. So this is what you'd see. You'd click the login button. And once you've created your online account for your utility, you would then see similar to your monthly bill, a chart showing your monthly water use, but then you can also see these hourly water meter reads. This is especially important if you suspect a problem or you just really want to get in the know about your water use. So I would suggest clicking View More Reads, where you can then see changes from hour to hour. I want to direct your attention to the last column on the right that says Change. When you see zeros, that indicates that no water is running through that meter, which would also indicate that your sprinklers aren't running, that you don't have a leak. There are a lot of things that you can deduce from this information. This is from my home, and what I notice is that between 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, there's zero water use. We're at work. But as the evening approaches, you can see that meter start to turn. So I go in here and I make sure that we have no leaks. I can also go in here and see how many gallons my sprinklers are using on an hourly basis. Very valuable information to get ahead of any high water bills. But at the end of the day, if you do note any unusual spikes or trends in your water use that are of concern to you, please don't hesitate to call Customer and Utility Services. I have their number listed. They can walk you through that online portal of your water use and help you determine if there is indeed a problem before those high bills arrive. They also have leak credits that can give you money back for some of the water that you lost. We also recommend that all irrigation systems have a rain and freeze sensor. This is an easy add-on device that shuts off sprinklers if they happen to be scheduled to run when it's raining or freezing. And any residents can earn a rebate for the first time installation of one of these. At plano.gov/rebates, you can learn more. Now, I mentioned those smart controllers that you manage from your phone. Those also can go for the rebate in lieu of the traditional rain and freeze sensor. We don't advertise this because we want to have that engagement with the public, but if you're interested in installing a smart irrigation controller, please get my contact information at the end, and I'd love to talk to you about it. Irrigation in the state of Texas is licensed by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. That is to protect the potable water supply and also to ensure water conservation and efficiency. So if after all this, you as a resident or an HOA manager are still looking for an irrigation contractor, we recommend going to dallasia.org. And they have a Locate a Contractor page where you can find a licensed professional in our area to do what you need to have done that you don't feel comfortable doing yourself, and know that that irrigation professional is licensed to do so. So I just wanted to put this up here once again for your reference, but I also printed handouts that you're welcome to have. Please come see me when we wrap up. I'll be happy to share these with you. And if you have any other questions that are water conservation or water quality related, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at my email address. These are web pages for our other upcoming sustainability programs. So thank you very much.